element of metta. Metta is loving kindness. And I always start our sessions with these beautiful little paintings that I make, or if you send me a hand painted card, I will likely chop it up into little bits. And then I write these sentiments on the back. Starting a meeting, starting to step into the three jewels of Buddhism, the Dharma, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. It's very traditional to begin the practice by setting an intention, a motivation for being here. This one reads, "May I dare to determine my own way." May I dare to determine my own way. I'd like to welcome you all to SatiSeva. SatiSeva is an affinity group associated with Recovery Dharma, and we are here to explore 16 mindfulness practices as a means by which we can learn to better support ourselves on the journey of recovery, and by extension, to support one another, and furthermore, to learn mindful ways of being supported. You know, that's something that we don't often talk about. But on the journey of recovery, there's something so intriguing to me about it. And this is very real for me, and that is the vulnerability that arises when I need help. And my resistance to A, needing help, B, wanting help, C, accepting help. And so mindfulness practice, focusing on, wow, how can I support others? How can I support myself? And how can I create an environment where I allow myself to be supported? And we can accomplish all of that and more by exploring these beautiful, beautiful mindfulness practices. We're on the third mindfulness practice called the cultivation of space as an act of generosity. And this is in the spiritual category of the SatiSeva practice. There are three categories: spirit, body, and mind. And we begin at the level of the spirit. And the reason why we do is because this is what I think is in real crisis. There is a crisis of spirit in the modern human being. And so we begin by exploring the mindfulness practices of awareness, openness, space, ambivalence, and acceptance. Today, we're going to continue our exploration of the mindfulness practice of space. And to begin, I want to encourage you to find a posture in your body that feels completely at ease. And so maybe this is an opportunity for you to lie down. Maybe this is an opportunity for you to fold your laundry, to water your plants, to enjoy some cuddles with your kitty or a bird or puppy. Maybe this is an opportunity for you to be in the kitchen and do some food prep. Maybe a place of ease in your body is to be like I am. I'm cross-legged. I'm sitting very quietly. My eyes are closed. I'm on a cushion. This is a time for you to completely support yourself in your body and create a condition of utter ease. Many of you have heard me say this multiple times, and it's worth repeating. On the journey of recovery, the body and the brain need so much more time to heal and to recover than we ever offer it. So may this be a little bit of time for you. come into the awareness of your breathing. And just allow your breath to have some relaxation, breathing in, breathing out. If you have the SatiSeva book and you'd like to read along with me, I'm on page 67. We're going to begin a new section called The Merit of Generosity. But before we step into that, I'd like to preface our practice today by reading a couple of sentences from the previous chapter, which is, when was the last time you allowed a moment to really look around your space and notice all the goodness life has bestowed? Beside the heartache and worry within your life, is there space to notice the air you breathe, a smile on someone's face, a flower growing out of a crack in the pavement, a bird singing to a mate, the sound of laughter? The generosity of life lives in the spaciousness of your awareness. I really love that sentence. The generosity of life lives in the spaciousness of your awareness. So, what that means is, as you cultivate awareness, which is the first mindfulness practice of the SatiSeva program, the more you cultivate awareness, the more spaciousness you naturally become, and the more spaciousness you naturally encounter. Suddenly, with awareness, you notice everything. And I really love this idea because as we get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller in our gaze, right down to the atomic level, we begin to see how enormous that space is. There's so much going on, even in the minutia of something. And contrary-wise, if you notice the space of the cosmos, it just goes on and on and on and on to a degree that is just unfathomable. So whether you're getting really narrow in the mind or whether you're getting really broad in the mind, there is space to be explored in both pairs of opposites, in both sides. And somewhere in the middle is you, is me. And so cultivating that awareness to gain access to cultivating space, to explore, to see, to wonder. Such a gift. And now to think of it as imbued with a spirit of generosity. The merit of generosity. Let's play with generosity as a quality within each of us. We all know people who are incredibly giving. And at the same time, we also see many examples of how people can be greedy, derisory, and selfish. Both kindness and mean-spiritedness live within us all. You may balk at the idea, but I bet there are people who have no issue being kind and generous to others, while in the privacy of their own minds think terrible things of themselves. I can be brutal to myself in ways I would never consider inflicting on someone else. To see this clearly enough to implement change, I need to cultivate space for the conditions fueling my harsh judgments to move around. I practice giving myself a moment to be still and quiet. This helps nurture space to ventilate my thoughts and feelings, which loosens the tightness of my conflicted mind. That's all we're going to read today. And I'd like to pick up on the concept of the conflicted mind. The conflicted mind is the first noble truth in Buddhism. There's suffering, there's discomfort, there's misery, there's conflict. The second noble truth is there are conditions for this conflict, and usually it's pairs of opposites, kind of in this oppositional tug of war. So on one hand, I'm really kind, I'm kind to others, I'm thoughtful and considerate, and on the other hand, I don't give myself the same regard. I'm quick, I'm harsh, I'm biting. Come on, Julia, what's the matter with you? And those two aspects of myself, those two opposing views, create a dis-ease. And what's worse for me is how often I've tried to convince myself that the harshness I harbor toward myself in the privacy and the quiet of my own mind, I've convinced myself that it in no way leaks out and negatively impacts others. And that is false. It does. It leaks out on my face often. A disapproving look, pursed lips, not blowing kisses, but instead offering sentiments, judgments of disapproval. I may be thinking about myself or the harshness there, but I'm also projecting that out. And when I encounter it in someone else, maybe even a mirror, I wear that on my face. So the third noble truth that is there's a way to harmonize this. There's a way to end the conflict. There's a way to explore it. And in Buddhism, there's the Noble Eightfold Path. And one of the aspects of the Noble Eightfold Path is wise mindfulness. An aspect of wise mindfulness is the cultivation of space. And space as a quality of generosity. Space that says, wow, okay, I'm being a little harsh with myself. I'm projecting that out. I need to give myself some time. Time and space are sisters. Maybe I go for a walk. Maybe it's something literal like that. Maybe I take a nap. Maybe I sit under the cosmos and just enjoy the divine imagination, delighting in me and in life. Maybe I just go outside and sit under a tree and stare at a wee small patch of grass and look at all the life that's happening in that very small space. It doesn't matter. The whole point is that I'm disrupting the momentum of habit energy, habit thoughts, habit storytelling, habit words and language in my mind. So here's a question for you. And we'll take this into some contemplative time. Where do you like to get some space and the perspective that it brings? And when you go to this space, what is the perspective you are given? And when you are given this perspective in this space where you find comfort and ease, what are the conditions in your experience that dictate the ease with which you receive this perspective or the resistance that you encounter? So, for instance, I don't get to go to the ocean very often because I live inland, but I love the ocean. And what's really fascinating whenever I go to the ocean, and it kind of depends where in the world I am, but in the Pacific Northwest, when I visit the ocean, it is an opportunity for me to go into that space and to gain access to the perspective of melancholy, which is curious, isn't it? I intentionally go there to experience the blues. That's just what happens for me. If I go to Hawaii or Maui and I go to the ocean, I don't have melancholy. The ocean there speaks something else to me. But in the Pacific Northwest, when I go get some space and the perspective I'm seeking at the sea is the blues, sorrow, grief. I weep there. And so when I go to the ocean in the Pacific Northwest, there is an intentional motivation for me. I am seeking something, I pursue something, I am receiving something, and I am also experiencing its resistance. When I go to the spaciousness of the prairie of my farm, the perspective I am granted is very different. This is one of creativity, imagery, art. The perspective that I often receive is challenging sometimes because it taps into my insecurities. So I'll come up with an idea and almost immediately I have an inner critic that's like, no, 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 you can't do this. You don't know how to do this. You're not talented enough to do that, blah, blah, blah. And I stay with it. That's the resistance. So I just get curious about it. I put that resistance in the space. What are you trying to tell me? Why are you telling me that? The space that I give myself, the perspectives that I intentionally seek, the conditions that I begin to understand regarding the ways I can receive and the ways that I resist are also offered by extension to so many people that I encounter. I live with a lot of people, and each individual is a whole complex universe. And so, the more space and understanding I can give myself by extension, the more space and understanding I can give others. That is the mutuality of mindfulness. That is, by definition, what it means to become a vehicle of support and an instrument of peace. So let's take a moment and let's adventure and journey into your spaces. What do they look like? What do they smell like? What do they sound like? What are the perspectives you're experiencing? And where do you find ease and resistance? Enjoy this time of quiet reflection, friends. Friends, cultivating space as an act of generosity is more than just telling someone, hey, I need a little space, or let me give you a little space to think about that. That's a very common expression. And it's not that that isn't valid, it is. There's simply more involved. And so, what I want to share with you as a means of stepping toward a conclusion of this practice is negative habit energy and our reactivity associated with it is like being in a two-seater car. And we're driving along, and yet right next to us, in the seat right next to us, is any kind of emotion, anger, frustration, confusion. And there's, because they're right next to us, there's no space. Those things can quickly take the wheel and begin to steer our lives. That's that compulsive reactivity. Space is more like driving a school bus. And while you might see more of the things tagging along with you, you see the judgments and riding in the back. Oh my God, there's some hostility and loneliness is back there. And oh golly, there's a really shy bit of grief sort of ducking in the back. And there's some sunniness and joy kind of front and center. But nevertheless, it takes longer for those types of experiences, those types of emotions, those types of thoughts to step toward the driver's seat. And that pause, the spaciousness of that pause, may be just enough time to tighten your grip on the wheel and go, nope, you are not driving this bus. I am driving this bus. And I've got a big, giant rear view mirror so I can see everything that's going on in the back, and everybody can just stay in their seat. I got this. I'm driving this bus, and we're going in a new direction. We're not going in the direction of habit energy. Everything about this journey is new. And it's not just about the cessation of the misuse of drugs and alcohol or process addictions. That's part of it. But it's all of the other psychological, emotional, spiritual habit energy too. It's all part of it. And when I reduce the intoxicant load, it's very important to do that, if for no other reason than to add clarity to everything else I'm experiencing. And not only to add clarity, but to add health and well-being in my body and brain. And so that the space I create is a generous notion, because I can see clearly what is riding in my bus with me. There's space for all of it to exist. And there's space where nothing but me is in the driver's seat. And friends, this is a practice. We don't go from a little two-seater vehicle. Maybe we take little increments and we go to a four-door, and then maybe an SUV and station wagon, and then maybe a truck and a school bus. Take your time. Grow as you go. And as always, the invitation is to enjoy the practice. Hey, friends. And to create space around this that is true. We are all, each of us, in a place of privilege. And that privilege has lots and lots of definition. There's people in this community that are privileged with affluence and material wealth. There are people in this community that are privileged in the way they can express themselves through words or art. There's so many variations of privilege. And why this is really important to not question it or not even defend it. This is a place of privilege. Life is conspiring for my well-being is a place of privilege for this reason. And that is the first noble reminder in Buddhism, which is you have a precious human life. And if your life is privileged as part of your preciousness, then the next question is, what are you doing with your precious human life? And this isn't about guilt tripping or shaming. This is simply staring in the mirror and asking honestly, daring to ask honestly, what am I doing with my privilege? What am I doing with the opportunities that I have? How am I sharing these opportunities? Now, the trick here is to notice the ego that's immediately standing up in your bus. Well, you're not doing anything great. You're just doing all this little tiny stuff, smiling at the person in the grocery store. What a big deal is that? That's not a big deal. That's just what normal people do. Well, heck, for me, that's kind of a big deal. Where I'm at, being able to smile to somebody, being able to even notice anybody is kind of a big change. That is what I am doing now with the privilege I have in my precious human life. It is no small thing to interact with people from a place of peace versus a place of aggression. It is no small thing to interact with people from a place of peace rather than a place of aggression. And so to be able to recognize that there is a giant unfurling, a giant mysterious unfurling, conspiring for my well-being, supporting the preciousness of my life, I can take that in as a conviction and do something with my life, channel that additional energy for peacemaking rather than for war. The real arrogant exercise of this privilege is to do nothing. Or to stay stuck in cycles of habit energy, samsara. And that is exactly precisely what we are not doing. Amazing. So I'd like to share with you today I'd like to invite you to make a little space for something today. And there are people here where it's already evening. So this will be for your task for the week, or maybe even tomorrow. But I'd like to invite you to make space for the quality of nurturance. And I'd like to encourage you to make space for nurturance in the aspect of the food that you give your body. And the next time you go to eat something today or tomorrow, make sure you do so with real intentionality. Consider where your food came from. Consider how your food's been prepared. Just take a moment to be with your food and to notice that this food is nurturing this body vessel. And it's not just fuel, it's nurturance. And when you nurture your body, you nurture your mind, you nurture your spirit, and by extension, you become a nurturer. And this is another expression of peace. And boy, look around. We need it. And we need you nurturing your life and by extension, my life, as only you can do. Make space for that and see what you see. Notice what you notice, and be sure to remember to smile as you practice. All righty, friends. I hope you get good rest today. I hope you eat good food and stay well hydrated. And I hope you get to smile at someone dear. We'll see you tomorrow for Recovery Dharma. If you're joining me for morning meditation, where we meditate at 8:30, please take note. Our June schedule for morning meditation is going to change. So rather than meditate on Monday mornings, we're going to be meditating on Saturday mornings, 9 a.m. online only. And these are morning meditations for spiritual, physical, emotional well-being. The schedule is on the Soul Center website. You can take a look at it. And I hope you join me for these meditations. You can also, if you can't make it, you can also make a dana offering to receive just the recordings. But I hope you'll join us. All righty, friends. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for being here. Namaste.